Good afternoon, Shuchi. A warm welcome to you on behalf of APAC News Network. My name is Rajneesh and I'm the editor of APAC News Network. So, APAC News is primarily a media organization headquartered out of Noida, and we deal with governance, healthcare, education, enterprise, IT, and BFSI, as well as startups. So, primarily, would like to discuss today in terms of the solutions and services and on the sustainable journey, how you help enterprises there. So, maybe the best way to start would be if you can give us an update on the solutions and services that are currently in the Eka Software portfolio, and we can take it up from there.
Sure, absolutely. Let's start with that. But let's first start with telling you that I'm originally from Noida. So my parents are housed there, they stay there. And so just a small common point because the world's really a small place, right? Isn't it, for us to connect? So Eka started its journey in 2004. So we are sitting 17 years from the time we started. We were a boutique software solutions provider, specifically to commodity trading and risk management companies and energy trading and risk management companies in the world. But our CEO is a visionary, and he's always on the front in wanting to bring towards the ecosystem better and more innovative solutions. So it is in 2015 and 2000, between 2015 and 17, that we thought that analytics is something that we wanted to invest in. A platform approach is something that we wanted to invest in. So we started creating a SaaS first platform. So a SaaS based solution for the commodity trading and risk management industry is what our vision was then in 2017. But from then to now, we've realized that the power of platform is so robust that we are now at this stage in the foray of being able to offer procurement to payment services, entire spectrum and gamut of applications for the CFO suite. So what Eka has is a platform that services the needs and requirements of CFOs across the world, from procurements to payments. As a part of that, our six pivots of robust solutions are on commodity trading and risk management, energy trading and risk management, e-sourcing, supply chain, and treasury and risk management and compliance, and of course sustainability, the topic of our conversation today. So that is what we do. We have about 100 plus marquee clients, and primarily we also service countries globally primarily, and APAC, EMEA, as well as North America are our huge customers.
Thanks. I'll take up one specific area from here. Two things you mentioned. Most of the solutions you mentioned about the risk management component, and you talked about the compliance. Now, many of these solutions, as and especially as you are working across geographies, will have different regulations and compliances and complying to these compliances. So it might be a same company who would have presence across these geographies, and sort of the now conforming to the compliances would also be different. So in this multi-regulatory kind of environment, how do you ensure a standardization within compliances also, so that there's no compliance challenges to say?
Sure. So you're very right. Whether it's sustainability, whether it's other solutions, typically you see that compliances are varied in between different geographies. They're varied in between different sectors. They're also varied in between different commodity classifications as well, right? So, and they're changing every year. So if the GRI framework required for you to basically declare and disclose on a different framework in 2016, in 2018 those requirements changed a little bit, and in 2020 they changed again. So the compliance framework itself is reinventing itself. There are new and more complex compliance requirements, disclosure requirements that are being added year on year across the companies, across the geographies, right? So, in order for us to make sure that these compliance requirements are met, what you need is a standardized single solution. You don't need point to point solutions, which, by the way, there are plenty in the market. You need to be able to have a single solution across, which is a horizontal solution across different sectors, is able to manage the changing requirements for disclosures, is able to manage the changing requirements across different segments and across different teams, because the procurement teams has different compliance requirements. They are bound to different standards and frameworks overarchingly in the organization, versus the supply chain team, which has different compliances and requirements. So even within an organization, the organization has different geographic requirements, and the organization has different requirements from different teams. Even within that, you need to be able to have a solution that is able to cater across these. And while organizations have been trying to manage this on spreadsheets, have been trying to manage this through different point to point solution, what you need is a unified and amalgamated solution, such that the risk management teams, the GRC teams, the compliance teams, or the sustainability teams are able to have a unified view of how the compliances look like, and it's just more easy and efficient.
Okay, so another part of this standardization you talked about, the uniform view as far as compliance is concerned, that you explained. Another part you mentioned about analytics. Now, again, different geographies, different teams, and they would be dealing in different businesses or different aspects of the businesses. So the data generated again is very heterogeneous, and to achieve some sort of homogeneity, if I may say, or standardization of data, to make analytics to work properly, unless that some standardization is not there, there's no point doing analytics on that, because you won't get the very accurate insights from that. So how would your solution ensure that data standardization so that analytics can work successfully?
Correct. One of the platform promise itself is that we would be able to homogenize the unit of measurement, for example, or the different methodologies in which you are bringing the data. So, firstly, the data input itself needs to be in uniform format. So, whether that is the standard units of measurement, whether that is the standard questions that are being represented or asked across different teams, across different groups, need to be standardized. That's what a software solution does for you. That's what Eka's ESG reporting solution and platform does for you. We are able to help in the standardization of data, such that data gets reported in a standard format, even if you are reporting it in a different format because you work in different units of measurement, you work in different zones. We understand that. We will map them at the templates at the back end. That's what software is supposed to do, such that what you get is a cleaned version of data for you to start your analytics. Because at the end of the day, the CFO needs to know what his scope 1, scope 2, or scope 3 emissions is, or what his emissions exposure or carbon risk is in a single unit of measurement. He does not care how many different geographies are reporting that data in which different units of measurement. Correct? So that's the job of the standardization, which a reporting solution really does need to focus on and bring on. And I must say that we do that job really well. And that's the platform promise, really.
Another thing you mentioned, and I'd like a little more clarification in that. The first part is more standard. You mentioned about 100 plus clients. So maybe if you can indicate certain marquee names within there across geographies, the marquee clients that you have. The second more important part is, though you mentioned earlier that one of your differentiators or advantages is that you are providing that one view and one solution, rather than uh, w- enterprises working with multiple vendors providing solutions. Having said that, what we have seen is many enterprises today prefer that multi-vendor approach where point solutions from very niche players is preferred. So, if I would like to ask you one or two key differentiator where you feel that Eka scores over this multi-vendor approach. So, one is client names and this differentiators.
Sure. So we have marquee names like Rio Tinto, Vale, some of the largest mines and ports in the world are operated by them. Cargill, COFCO, um, J Global, Glencore, Boliden, Just Energy, the Coffee Board of India, REG. These are some of really marquee clients that Eka is serving across different solutions using our platform approach. And some of these clients, enterprise as well as mid-sized customers, why do they come to us? They're already using a lot of point solutions. They're already possibly also using enterprise solutions, which are very named and famed in the market because they are using them for manufacturing, etc. They use us because even across these diverse data pools or data lakes that they want to create commonality because there's always some data that is being pulled on from one system to another system in using to report. Like if I were to report a P&L attribution report, I will possibly be using three different data systems, right? And the companies work with those data systems because they have those specific nuances embedded in those systems. For example, not every company is able to do a commodity trading and risk management system very well. And that's why you see so many niche players in the market. That's why Eka entered into that market in 2004 as well. So you will always continue to have these smaller systems. But there is a huge argument for having uniformity also across these systems because you have data residing across these multitude of vendors, right? You do need unification of that data because the similar data is being used by a multitude of different systems. So you need a data pool where you can pull in data. There's less data redundancy and therefore more efficiency in the system. That's what a platform system really does. It helps connect data in from different sources, also is able to give you data out to those different sources because it's possible that I'm connecting to an ERP system and it's possible that I'm connecting to a human resources system because I would like to take in some data from the labor incident reporting, or I would like to see some correction management and preventive action management. But it's also important that I also am able to represent back saying these are the scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 total emissions calculated for this year, and this is your total reductions calculated for this year, so on and so forth. So data in and data out are both an important premise, and there is a huge premise for unification of information that is coming in from these different sources. So yes, there is an argument that we should have a multitude of vendors which have point to point solutions, but even across these point to point solutions you will still need a degree and a level of uniformity such that you can bring in that cadence, you can bring in that data. It's like a program management office in that sense, right? So a program management office needs to manage that data. How will you manage that data unless you have a robust solution that can consolidate that data and represent it in an appropriate format that the organization requires?
Thank you. So now let's come to the sustainability part. If you can elaborate on the offering that and what sort of use cases it brings about.
Sure. So, well, our sustainability solution is geared at helping companies activate their ESG strategies, programs, and initiatives. Now, you see that today's ESG efforts, no matter how many best efforts the companies have, are ad hoc, they are siloed, and a lot of times they're manual. So everyone's progressing towards the journey of making the ESG automated or ESG digitized in that sense. Now, the technology products that are currently available support discrete and disconnected ESG efforts. It is our endeavor to have a unified theme for sustainability, and that's why Eka's ESG solution essentially is a holistic approach for organizations to drive impact and build greater customer, investor, and employee trust. So, as a part of our solution, what we do is that we have three key components. We have the ESG management and reporting solution. We have the Eka sustainability sourcing solution for responsible sourcing of companies. And we have Eka's risk management, wherein risk policies, monitoring, audits, etc., can be taken in real time view of ESG compliance and risk and can be reported to all the stakeholders appropriately. So, what we do essentially is we help you across the entire upstream, downstream, and midstream segments where we are able to help you through Eka's sustainability sourcing. We're able to help you through Eka's ESG management and reporting, and we're also able to help you through Eka's risk management.
So these three components of sourcing, reporting, and risk management you mentioned. Uh, I have a one query. If we look back at the last 2 years during the pandemic times, one to some extent, if we may say, the pandemic and how that necessitated the work from home had an impact on the entire sustainability thing itself. And the three pillars that you were talking about, I'm presuming that model was designed pre-pandemic times. So, how did that model get impacted during these last 1.5 years, and how has it got redesigned, if I may say?
Very interesting that you say that, Rajneesh, because even though the model was designed pre pandemic years, it was designed with a vision. It was designed to actually custom fit such a situation if it arises, right? God forbid such a situation arises, but it's designed to ensure longevity and sustainability in an organization's entire planning and strategy, right? So it helps you mitigate risks, whether on climate, whether on sustainable supplier sourcing. So it's helping you mitigate whether on deforestation or there are other risks involved in your supply chain. It helps you mitigate those. So we had pre-planned this for such an event. That's what you do with risk management, right? They're able to help you waver the waters during such times as COVID, as has been happening in the last 2 years. So while the product underwent some product changes, overarchingly the themes remain the same because our themes were that we organizations need to do sustainable sourcing for them to become for them to have longevity of production. And COVID has clearly proven it right that organizations that had invested in such sustainable programs have been able to grow multifold as against organizations which did not invest in programs for sustainability, because then they're impacting the responsible sourcing at all, right? Then on the ESG management and reporting, organizations have become more conscious. So people have also become more conscious. Where are they buying from? What are they buying? Is there is there child labor involved in what you are buying? Is this coming from a regulated produce source? We've all become so conscious of direct from farmers to us. So those are all models that have also pivoted in these last 2 years post COVID. And somehow we happened to have that vision. Manav, our CEO, happened to have that vision that we definitely needed to invest in sustainability because our clients in agriculture, mining, and energy, these are commodities that power the world, right? Across these clients, and even during the COVID times, agriculture did not stop. All agri trading companies actually had bumper sales. They were the companies that kind of progressed in those times as well. So that's when ECA's solutions also powered and pivoted the clients to grow because there was an option for them to invest in technology solutions that could help them on their sustainability journey. So I do think that we happen to be in the right space at the right time. We had happen to have that vision, and also the power to execute that vision in the times.
Okay, thanks. And another part of this is, especially on the sourcing part, as you mentioned, the commodity sourcing, and what we have traditionally seen, and this would be applicable across many geographies, I would believe. Uh, there is a question mark often in the transparency, over the transparency in commodity exchange and commodity sourcing part. How does a software solution from Eka sort of take care of these, that there is no transparency compromise there? So, how would a software solution ensure that?
So when you're a producer or when you're in different stages of the supply chain, typically to be a sustainable organization, you have to go through a process of certification. That's a process that is time consuming, resource consuming, and money consuming. So you really have to have the intention and heart to go the whole hog in that process, right? So when an organization does that, it is to say that these components, whether it is on the labor, whether it is on who is producing the actual produce, what is going in that actual produce, am I using the right kind of fertilizers, am I using the right quantum of fertilizers, am I doing deforestation while producing something, am I involving child labor, and so on and so forth. So when someone is complying to these certifications or applying for these certifications, if they get granted these certifications, it is apparent by the certifying body that you are conforming to a certain standard and you are following the transparent mechanisms of that standard. Now, what a solution like ECAS does is helps those organizations. So, an organization could have 2,000 different suppliers. Now, they've been validating through paper all these suppliers, right? They've been validating whether this supplier is a sustainable supplier, does have an right certificate or not. Now, what a solution like ours does is helps organizations get all the suppliers in one place, get all their certifications in one place, get all the magnitude of information required for those certifications in one place, such that when an organization is looking at their supplier framework, they are able to say how much sustainable produce do I have and how much unsustainable produce do I have. What this really means is that if there is anything wrong with a certain product, you can trace back to a certain producer. And that happens across the entire supply chain, because the if you have contracted with a middleman, if then you have contracted with a final retailer, or if you have contracted with an aggregator, all of these get tracked by producer, by certification across the entire supply chain. Now, to have that level of minute information available is very important for your supply chains to be resilient, because real time you know what is going wrong and when, so that you can rectify that situation. This is exactly what happened in COVID, right? I mean, all of that outbreak that had happened, um, China did not know what had happened and where. So many outbreaks, not just to name China, but so many other outbreaks have happened. Even within organizations, we don't know where an incidence of COVID is kind of sort of emanating from. And that's why you have a solution like ours, where you're able to assess A, what is the source of the spread, or what is the source of the problem? B, is the source of the problem validated? And see how to rectify the malfunction that has happened so that it doesn't get repeated.
Thanks. Little part you, the next question I'm asking, you have answered a part of it, the last two questions. One, you talked about the sustainability model, and you said it was in whatever way, sort of even in pre-pandemic times, it was designed to fit in. My next question is the supply chain itself got terribly disrupted during the pandemic times, at least during the initial months, definitely more so. So, how did that? You touched upon it briefly in this last answer, but this supply chain disruption, how was it handled in the current situation, so that the best possible scenario emerges?
So there are two parts to this, right? There were two kinds of organizations. An organization which was more advanced on its journey and had already done some of the background work and prepared themselves for an event like this. But there are very few and handful of those organizations. So I won't touch those organizations because they built their resiliency, they invested in such programs well in advance, right? So they powered through, they grew, they powered through. They were also some of the organizations that actually helped provide the basic necessities to the world. But if I'm looking at the other organizations, which is possibly 95% of the organizations in the world, were not purpose built or and had not purpose prepared for such a calamity or such an event. For those organizations, the first year, or at least between the 6 to 8 months, was an effort in recreating and rehashing some of the processes they had, because technology is an intervention, but technology cannot be the be all and end all. It cannot be a panacea, right? So they had to really rework on the processes and then bring in some of the tools around those process changes to say, can we possibly can we possibly now adopt these tools because everyone's working remote. So unless you adopt tools to help you power through, work is going to come to a full stop. So number one was the fact that a lot of processes had to change. So organizations had to change the framework of how they did business, how they managed supply chain disruptions before, because this was not a supply chain disruption that anyone had foreseen, and of this magnitude specifically. So number one was a process change that they brought about to make sure that business continuity happened. Number two was that what could be the surrounding interventions, technology or otherwise, that organizations could bring in to make sure that they powered through these new processes that they had put together. Because companies and people are working in a completely remote environment, and yet business has to continue. So the second point was how solutions or technology interventions or other interventions could be brought about to make sure that the process changes and business continuity happened and was translated well. So I would say these were the two things that helped organizations manage the supply chain disruptions that occurred, and and things that they did not forecast at all.
Okay. Uh, so now coming to more specific a business question in terms of Eka, what sort of go-to-market strategy you follow to and the initiatives to reach out to what sort of network, and how do you basically look at acquiring clients?
Yeah, so our go-to-market strategy is fairly straightforward. We have very, very strong reach and network in operating markets of Europe, Asia, and the US. These are markets that we have been operating in. These are the markets that we know very well since the last 17 years. These are customers that we know very well since the last 17 years, right? Because the customers primarily existed in the commodities and manufacturing segments. They existed in the agriculture space, and metals and mining space, and in energy space as well. So these customers are also the customers that we would be looking at sustainability solutions. But ultimately, sustainability is a very horizontal product, right? So it's a product en masse, unlike the commodities and manufacturing segment only. It has the potential to reach a huge number of organizations. It has the potential to reach a huge number of target segments as well, which we were not targeting earlier. So, first is for us to make sure that we continue to stay strong in the segments that we operate in. But the second is, of course, to reach out to a huge partner network also and build a strong partner network, whether be it with the auditing companies, whether it is with the ESG practicing companies, ESG advisory or consulting companies. So companies like that as well, to strengthen our partner network so that we have a reach for newer paradigms, newer organizations, newer charters. And sustainability is a very specific and deep domain. So there are consultants that are operating in this domain since the last 20 years because some organizations charted their path of resilience that that long back. And those doyens in the industry are also people that we are looking to partner with to see how we can make one is that we are taking our solution to a wider network. Two is also to make sure that the client is able to derive value from it, right? Our go to market strategy is only going to be as successful if we are able to reinvent ourselves faster, if we are able to add to the product and grow from the product faster, because we are very clear that for us, product adoption is of utmost importance. I mean, I have um, prospects that are coming to us. They're saying they already have two sustainability solutions, but they're looking for the third one because the other two are not so easy to manage and use. So they're looking at a third solution. So our key is to make sure that if a customer buys us, there's some amount of stickiness, and the stickiness has to happen through the right kind of product that we have. So that is of primary importance to us, that we are able to service the customers and we are able to see product adoption in the first few customers that we acquire. We also have a first customer already, and it's a public listed company in Thailand. It's a shipping corporation. So clearly, things are moving on the right path.
So, now talking about the stickiness of this product solution, so I wanted to know for sustainability, when you are talking with organizations or enterprises, who is talking on the sustainability part? Is it the CFO or the CTO or the business functional heads? Who is exactly, or there is a separate person who is looking at sustainability? Who is doing the talking from the enterprise side?
Sure. So typically, is the chief sustainability officers or chief compliance officers are the ones that we are speaking with the most. Very few instances do we get into conversations with business people, but I would say chief sustainability officers interface with us, sustainability teams interface with us, compliances teams also interface with us, and in a few instances, we've also seen the CFOs who have a very, very large narrative and charter also interface with us. So it's all of these four different roles across the organizations.
And if we look at specifically on the sustainability part, from an Eka perspective, what are the important milestones in your planned roadmap, if I may ask?
Okay, so give me a view of what are you talking about? The product milestones
Uh,
typically.
I'm talking about one, obviously, in terms of the product. Second, in terms of vertical wise expansion, maybe looking beyond the verticals that you already mentioned. As you said rightly, sustainability spans across verticals. And third would be horizontally also, in terms of what other linear and non-linear functions would you include. So I'm talking overall in general.
Okay. So, firstly, this even in the current stage, as the first milestone, we were very clear that sustainability was not going to play in the verticals where we have already existed before. So we were clear this is a horizontal solution. It touches all the solutions. My first customer is a shipping customer. I've never had a shipping customer before in the history of ECA, right? But the sustainability customer is coming from a different vertical itself from what we've been used to. I'm speaking to customers from different and very wide variety of domains on manufacturing, right? So there are companies in beauty products. There are companies that manufacture very niche perfumery products. There are companies that are talking to us which are in aeroplane manufacturing. There are companies that are talking to us that manufacturing some small components, again, motor parts, because it is a horizontal solution. So we are looking at going way beyond the traditional industries that we approached earlier for our different solutions. Yes, those industries taught us a lot about sustainability, but what we've also learned is that it's a horizontal solution. All companies can benefit from sustainability solutions. I'll tell you that ECA itself is going to be a certified and sustainable vendor in 2022. So within ECA, we have sustainability goals for the organization that we are chartering on the path on. And we are a technology company. We are neither of the companies or neither of the horizontals. I'm talking to asset management companies. I'm talking to venture capital companies that again invest in different portfolios, right? I'm talking to companies that are impact management companies. So very different and varied portfolios and verticals are coming to our fore from the earlier domains of agriculture, metals, mining, and energies that we have played in so far. It's a horizontal solution. It's a big market that is open for the taking. And more importantly, if organizations are reporting to a certain framework, their needs are by and large similar. That's why the solution is also simpler in the sense that we are able to standardize it across different verticals, across different horizontals, because you are not catering to a vertical, you're catering to framework. So for GRI, we are able to cater to GRI. For TCFD framework, we are able to cater to the TCFD framework, no matter what kind of companies you are, because we have purpose built to those frameworks rather than horizontals. There will always be some components of differences. So 20%, you're always going to end up configuring or custom building for the client, because each client's needs are different. But by and large, the sustainability frameworks expect you to disclose and comply on standard set of metrics, and those standard set of metrics are mostly common across different horizontals. So it's a horizontal solution, and it caters to many horizontals and verticals. So in terms of the milestone, we don't have a certain milestone to say that this is the industry that we are going after, or these would be the top three industries. In fact, the milestone would be to get seven different customers of in the next 2 months, to get seven different customers of seven different horizontals, to be able to prove to the industry that a horizontal agnostic solution is able to service the needs of each organization fairly well.
But just in the passing, this, if I may say, conscious decision to avoid the pre-existing verticals where you already have other eco solutions. You are not upselling or cross-selling the sustainability solutions there. Doesn't that in one way sort of, these are the times when every solution provider is looking at, if I may say, deepening the engagement with the existing customers.
So
Doesn't it sort
firstly,
of prevent it with those 100 plus customers you already have?
no, so I did not say that we are going to avoid those. I said that we are not going to only focus on those, which is very different from saying that, I am there. They are customers that have been with me for a very long time. So yes, we are going to deepen those engagements. And the first set point is always to go to places where you always have a relationship built. So those relationships will continue, and they will continue across any different solutions that we bring to the market. But the reason why we brought to the market this sustainability solution was, it could have been driven and it could have been brought into our knowledge by our existing verticals and our existing customers. But with that, we had realized that we could help service a much larger market, because the market construct is different, right? And by no means and by nowhere have I said that we would not focus, we would ignore our customers. Our customers and customer success is really important to us. But yes, that is not going to be my only market. I am looking at making sure that we have a lot more different horizontals in our portfolio, a lot more verticals in our portfolio, a lot of different company types in our portfolio, because the sustainability solution can really cater to the needs of all. If you look at it, what are your basic needs in a sustainability solution? You want to make sure that your environmental, social, and governance compliances are there to the fore. And how would typically you do that? You do that by making sure that your ethics and compliance is there, your sustainable supply management practices and metrics are there, you're making sure that you have all your effluents and waste management done well, your emissions management, whether on scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 emissions, as well as water and material consumption are set right. And you're also making sure that there are no occupational health and safety standards in doing this. You're catering to all the human rights and labor requirements. And at the same time, you're training your employees, you're training your partners, you're training your vendors well enough on all the risks involved, all the sustainability practices, all the sustainability narratives that you have, right? So if you look at these, then the standard set of expectations from an organization that wants to charter the path of sustainability are fairly similar. There will be differences in different nuanced changes, but by and large, a sustainable organization wants to try and do all of those. Feel free
Great.
to reach out to me, Rajneesh.
Sure. And thanks a lot. Really appreciate you taking your time out for
Thank
this.
you. Thanks so much. This was really engaging conversation. All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.